Watchdog, live from Television Centre tonight. BT says it's cheap to talk. Watchdog says it's much cheaper to talk to its rivals. A feast on the packet, barely enough for two inside. Tesco at it again. And books for Christmas, half price if you know where to go. Watchdog, the programme you cannot afford to miss, give or take panorama. Remember, we are live. If you want to ring us, here's the number, 0500 500 567. The call is free. Alice is busy answering the phones, along with Chris Joy, Jonathan Maitland and the rest of the team. First, BT. How much do you guess it costs to call, say, Tom Cruise in Beverly Hills and have a 10-minute chat? £2, £10? BT thinks we've got the wrong end of the stick. This week, it's added to its £100 million advertising budget with a new campaign. In BT's words, to set the record straight. But is it the whole story?
With BT, how much is a 10-minute call to Hollywood this evening?
I'd say about £15. £15, £20.
£15?
The actual cost is only £3.79, or less with one of BT's discount packages.
This is very impressive. Yeah.
Very impressive.
I didn't think it would be so cheap. I'm shocked at that.
Sure, you some did that before.
It's good to talk.
Well, we put BT's own survey to the test by asking another bunch of cinema goers if they had any idea about the cost of calls to Hollywood.
I haven't got a clue.
£5, or about £8 or £9.
No, I'd say about £4, £3, £4. Wow.
£2, $10, $30 maybe?
At least $30, $30, $40.
Big differences. Then we tell them the real BT price, £3.79.
Really?
You're kidding.
More expensive than I thought. More than I thought, yes.
I've actually got Mercury and it's definitely a lot cheaper, I know.
Is it? Yes, it is. On off-peak rates, Watchdog has discovered not only Mercury, but also the majority of the new cable operators provide a service cheaper than BT's £3.79. Mercury now serving 750,000 customers, 10-minute off-peak call to Hollywood, £3.20. The cable operator Telessential with 50,000 customers, £3.32. Bell Cable Media with 80,000 customers, cheaper again, £2.85. And 9X, it serves 200,000 customers, 10 minutes to Hollywood, £2.84.
So call home. There's no easier way than with the Sprint phone card you've already got. You'll feel a lot better.
And to give you some idea of the cost the other way, American Sprint charges $5.15, £3.34 for that same call, Hollywood to Britain, although the other two big operators, AT&T and MCI, charge more. But BT's not just boasting about the price of its international calls.
With BT, how much is a 5-minute call to London in the daytime?
About £2, maybe?
60 pence. 80 pence.
The actual cost is just 49p, or less with one of BT's discount packages.
That's very reasonable. It's unbelievable.
That's fair, isn't it?
That's cheap. That's all right. It's not got very much to do with the price of fish,
It's good to talk.
Note those words less with one of BT's discount packages. What does that mean? Well, BT has 4 discount packages. 3 cost money to join. The most popular, Premier line, gives a 15% discount, but you pay £24 a year to belong to the scheme. And if you pay that, does it mean you save money in the long run? Which magazine has put BT's charges under the microscope?
With the Premier Line scheme, you're not going to save any money unless you spend something like £65 a quarter on your calls. Once you're above that, you are saving money with Premier Line, but below that, you won't save.
Which took 28 average household bills and found in 20 cases Mercury was cheaper. For phoning abroad, 10 out of the 13 cable operators were cheaper than BT's basic charge. 9X, which covers the North West and Surrey, was 30% cheaper than even BT's discount lines. And discount schemes, most of BT's competitors have them too, but they are free, unlike BT's Premier Line scheme.
BT are making £6,000 profit per minute. They have something like 90% of the domestic telephone market, so they are a virtual monopoly. They are in competition with other telephone companies, and we would like to see them competing with those companies on price. Right now, they're the most expensive of all the telephone companies, so quite simply, we want to see them bring their prices down and compete for business in that way.
With me, Michael Biden, Marketing Director at BT. He's the man who keeps writing to us all at home, trying to persuade us to spend more money with BT. Mr. Biden, we saw there the Consumers Association saying your profits are £6,000 a minute and you should cut prices across the board.
Well, we have done. We've cut prices by over £1 billion in the last 2 years. What we want to do in these ads is communicate that to all of our customers. But I would just take exception to the Consumer Association. Their sample was very small, only 70 people in that survey. When we did a survey against Mercury, for example, a year ago, we sampled 400,000 customers and found that 250,000 of them would have been better off with BT.
Well, they stand by their report, but let me ask you this. Why this complicated business of special discount charge schemes? Why don't you just let everybody take advantage?
Well, we have a huge range of customers at BT. Some of them don't use the phone very much, and so we offer them a light user scheme, which offers a discount on the rental, the fixed element of the charge. Whereas the heavy users make a lot of calls, many of them international, and they benefit from our Premier line, which gives them a 15% discount on the calls.
But those who use the phone very little, they still have to pay the fixed charges, don't you?
Yes, they do, but if they are making less than £11 worth of calls in a quarter, they get a discount against that fixed fee.
Isn't this campaign all about you're worried about the competition of the cable companies and Mercury?
No, what we're trying to do is make people understand just what terrific value BT has become. We've become a world-class telco since privatisation. Prices have come down by 45% to the consumer. We've invested something like £20 billion, and we think that the consumer is getting a terrific value. As you've seen in the international comparisons, the UK has some of the lowest telephone charges now in the world.
It's still £6,000 a minute profit.
It's a very big business.
Thank you, Michael Biden.
Supermarket packaging and the big sell. It involves photographers, designers, consultants and marketing gurus. The result is the most humdrum meal can look like a mouth-watering feast.
Carl Barnes lives in Buckinghamshire. He was tempted by the photographs on the covers of the Tesco's range of chicken curries.
I thought they looked good. I like curries and easy to make. When I opened them up, I was really disappointed. I saw that there were 4 pieces of meat in the curry dish, and I looked at the box. There should have been 8. You have to take a representation of what is on the packet as the actual contents. So, under those circumstances, really, it's an illusion. It's a magician's trick. And I think that it's, as I say, it's a practice that's carried out by everybody. And I think it's basically wrong.
Carl Barnes didn't just want a refund. To make a point, he sent the packaging off to Trading Standards.
We went down to Tesco's, bought a few samples, 4 samples for ourselves, and sent them off to public analysts to have a look and see whether or not what was shown on the packaging was the same as what we found inside. We didn't find the same problem as Carl did, because we found that there were the 8 pieces of meat that you would expect. But we did have some concerns about the way the packaging showed the amount of meat compared to the amount of sauce.
I've just cooked my own fresh chicken sark from Tesco's, and it smells very good. How many pieces of chicken? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of them are very, very small. 7, 8. There's about 8, maybe even 9 pieces of chicken, but they're much, much smaller than on the packet, and it really doesn't look nearly as appetising as the photograph on the box.
That's because the major supermarkets each spend over £5 million a year on design and photography that screams "Buy me." The mission is clear.
To create a pack that attracts consumers so that they buy that particular product rather than a product made by a competitor. And the market is extremely competitive, and we have to do this by deploying techniques which make the product look more attractive and more appetising, and a design that is more compelling so that you pick it off the shelf. In the old days, bangers used to be sort of uncooked and coloured with boot polish, and ice cream used to be made from smash and coloured accordingly. But none of those things go on these days. The trading standards laws are tighter, but the industry is pretty self-regulating, and it's in no one's interest to cheat, because a dissatisfied customer is not going to come back to that particular supermarket or buy that brand.
But photographers can still work wonders with the most ordinary of food. We set off on a test of our own.
my rather sad-looking sponge. I've just taken it straight out of the packet, plonked it on a plate. I've done absolutely nothing to it. And they say it's all in the art of the photography. So let's have a go. I think we're focused. Number one. And it's not bad, but I'm not sure if I saw those pictures on the packet, I would buy the cake.
The professional's secret is to order lots of the product and pick the best. The cake is transformed by switching it to a tea plate instead of a dinner plate and pushing most of the cream and jam to the middle.
Paul, this looks amazing. It really doesn't look like my sad little sponge anymore, does it?
It's exactly the same cake with just a redistribution of its contents.
A little bit of extra icing sugar?
Yes, because we've only got one cake and I had to cover some cracks to try and make it look a bit better.
It looks almost edible now.
Well, if that's the way you feel, we'll shoot it.
Great.
Camera action, do it again. Action, do it again.
We've done our own supermarket sweep and found a few more examples. First, a Cadbury's chocolate cake. So big on the picture, they can't even fit it on the plate. Looks more modest in reality. Totally different colour too. Tesco's crispy pancakes, obviously taken by the same photographer. Using a saucer instead of a plate, they're lost on this standard size dinner plate. And a San Marco pizza. On the package, 21 salami slices, just 9 on the real one. Yes, we really do count these things. Of course, any photographs on packets or in adverts that you find genuinely misleading are breaking the law. Aylesbury Trading Standards recently prosecuted the distributors of this mail order catalogue. They were offering this rather sumptuous pile of towels for just £19.99. But the reality was this limp bundle that's about half the height. The towels in the photograph had been padded out with cardboard, a little cheat that cost the company £2,000 in fines.
Next, books for Christmas, £1 billion business, and this year the bestsellers are cheaper than ever. Asda has smashed the old price-fixing deal known as the net book agreement and triggered off a sales war. Here's Chris Choi.
In this country, more than half of us buy at least one book a year. At any one time, there are more than 1 million titles in print, but most of us choose one like this from the bestseller list. These are the books that are getting cheaper. A price-fixing agreement dating back to 1900 has collapsed. Known as the net book agreement, it meant publishers wouldn't offer discounts. Now they will. But some retailers have been handed a massive advantage.
Today, they're at the best buy price of just 79p each.
It's the supermarkets that are getting the best deals from publishers because they can guarantee to sell more of the top titles they can buy in bulk. That's much cheaper. Free of that old price-fixing arrangement, the pile 'em high, sell 'em cheap principle that works so well for groceries can now come into play for books. The supermarkets want us to get into the habit of buying books with our beans, and if you're looking for a title on the bestseller list, well, it's not such a bad idea. I'll save £18 on just these 4, and it's difficult to see how anybody can say that that is a bad deal for customers. Many in the business do believe the reader will lose out in the end, though. Bookshops have always relied on profits from bestsellers to keep afloat. The price of the top titles subsidise the specialist and reference sections. But as people start to buy from supermarkets, that's all under threat. And some small outlets are retaliating. Why have you got baked beans in a bookshop?
What we're doing is we're giving our customers today a tin of beans with their purchase to draw attention to the fact that supermarkets have started loss leading with books. And that's going to put pressure on shops like ourselves who offer a wide range of service to our customers.
I mean, people are getting bargains at the moment. It's difficult to see how that could be bad for the customer.
We will order any book in print. You try going into a supermarket, don't bother asking for books they don't stock. Even any groceries they don't stock, they won't order them for you. We provide a service that goes beyond that.
But do they go to these lengths? Can they find a little-known tome written by Watchdog? Can I throw out a bit of a challenge to you then? It's the Watchdog Guide to Getting a Better Deal.
Indeed. Let me just check on the computer. There we are. Watchdog Guide to Getting a Better Deal.
So you can get it?
That, if you order it now, that would be in Midday tomorrow.
Oh, excellent. Well, consider that an order.
Done.
So, would the supermarkets measure up to our challenge? None of the chains I called at would order Watchdog's book. You see, it's hardly a top seller. When I asked for the Watchdog book in there, they just looked at me as though I'd gone mad. I hadn't even heard of it in there. And if you're looking for specialist or reference titles, you won't find them just round the corner from the fresh food section either. But for bargain bestsellers, supermarkets are the place to shop. We compared the savings on offer when you buy 5 best-selling paperbacks from 4 supermarket outlets. Best was Asda. You save £10.50 on the publisher's price of their top 5. Next was Sainsbury. Their top 5 saves £8. Tesco saves £7. And at the bottom of our savings league was Safeway. We only saved £2 buying their top 5 paperbacks.
And this best-selling hardback makes the point. Stephen King's Rose Madder, publisher's price £16.99. That's what you'll pay at most small independent bookshops. At W.H. Smith and Dillon's, it's £12.99, a saving of £4. Buy it at a supermarket and pay half the publisher's price, just £8.49. A real bargain, although I have to say nothing for me compares with the service and knowledge you get at a good bookseller's. Now, here's an impressive ad from the glossy pages of the Daily Telegraph magazine. Ascot Driveways. It claims to have a £10 million turnover. One of the 2 largest companies specialise in giving the outside of your home a new look, which can add thousands to its value. But Jonathan Maitland has a cautionary tale.
Welcome to 104 New Road, the home of Jean Lawson. Now, creating the right impression is very important to Jean. That's why she's just had a conservatory built out the back and an extension done to her kitchen. And that's why this summer she decided she wanted the very latest in home improvements, a fancy concrete drive to replace this.
Our driveway is in a state and it's an embarrassment because it's in the middle of the village. And 6 months ago, we contacted Ascot Driveways and paid them £1,250 deposit. And they told us they were going to do it as soon as possible. No one has come and done anything to our driveway. It's still in the state it was. Ascot Driveways have done nothing at all, and they still have our money, which we could have used to have done other things to the house.
And Jean's not the only one. This file has 50 letters in it, all from people complaining about Ascot Driveways Limited. Some, like Jean, are still waiting for their drives to be laid. Others have drives, but are far from happy with them. Susan Morgan wanted a drive like this. The price, £2,550. But this is what she ended up with. It's the wrong colour, it's not thick enough to take the weight of a car, and it slopes back towards her house. So when it rains, the water flows into the air vents. We found the man to tell us the truth about the company. Gordon Fitch worked as a salesman for Ascot Driveways earlier this year.
It was certainly a hard sell tactic. 3 or 4 hours in the house wouldn't be unusual. We told the customers that we were members of the Safe Buy UK group, the Guild of Master Craftsmen and the Federation of Master Builders, basically to give them the impression that they were dealing with a quality company.
In fact, Ascot are no longer members of Safe Buy UK. They were thrown out in June, but they continued to advertise membership. As for the Guild of Master Craftsmen, Ascot were thrown out of that too. The Federation of Master Builders, meanwhile, are to review Ascot's membership after getting complaints about the company every day. Complaints such as misleading customers over who would actually do the work.
We told the customers that the people that would be carrying out the work were fully trained and qualified fitters working directly for Ascot Driveways, and that the experience we had was over 20 years in the construction side of the home improvement industry.
In reality, Ascot subcontract the work to local building firms, and they've only been going for 2 years. Well, here we are in Manchester at the headquarters of Ascot Driveways Limited, and the man behind the company is Marcus Gordon. Now, this letter from the Department of Trade and Industry shows that Mr. Gordon is a bankrupt, and he's been disqualified twice from serving as a company director. So it's surprising then to see him doing this, hiring staff for Ascot and interviewing an undercover researcher from Watchdog for a job. Marcus Gordon was also involved with another driveways company here in Manchester, which collapsed 2 years ago, owing hundreds of thousands of pounds and leaving dozens of dissatisfied customers. So, what's he got to say for himself? We're going to find out now. Marcus Gordon had gone to ground, leaving Yvonne Dixon, the company's secretary, and customer services manager Alan Levine to face the music.
Excuse me, please.
Yeah, we would like to ask you about the 50 people who have complaints about your company. There are quite a few people who've asked for drives, they've paid a deposit, and they haven't had their money. Then there are dozens who've actually had drives done, but they're extremely shoddy. Are they going to get compensation?
We have actually released a statement to the Watchdog programme.
Are those people going to get compensation, though? Because some of them have been complaining for more than 6 months. What about the people who've had driveways that are cracked, that are uneven, that are leaking? They've complained to you. They've got absolutely no change out of you whatsoever. What message have you got for the people who you've let down? Would you like to tell us where Mr. Marcus Gordon is, by any chance?
Who?
Marcus Gordon, the man who's behind this company.
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know.
Well, why does he sign letters as the general manager if he's nothing to do with his company? What message have you got for the 50 people who've complained about your company? Some of them paid deposits more than 6 months ago for a drive they were told they would get within 6 weeks, and they didn't get it.
Jonathan risking his life again. There's two important things to say about this story. One, expensive ads in glossy newspaper supplements are no guarantee of a company's reliability, and never ever pay up front. Only place a deposit you can afford to lose. Alice.
A quick update on some of the stories we've been featuring on Watchdog. First, bull bars, the dangers of which we reported in September. Last Wednesday, a coroner called for them to be banned. 10-year-old Helen Baggs died 6 days after being run down by a Land Rover Discovery fitted with steel bars. The inquest recorded a verdict of accidental death. And school meals, the salmonella outbreak in Stockport involving the catering firm BET. An official report has concluded the outbreak, which affected 9 children, was probably caused by contaminated turkey. Please keep the calls coming in. It's free to phone Watchdog live here in the studio, 0500 500 567. Annie.
Next, nightmare landlords, a description for unscrupulous developers who buy cheap flats and sell them on. They reap huge profits from the amount they charge leaseholders for repairs and maintenance. The case of Harold Bebbington, highlighted by the London's Evening Standard, has led to MPs calling for new laws to reform the system. Quite simply, if a leaseholder can't meet Mr. Bebbington's huge bills, in some cases £25,000, he or she is out on the street with a mortgage still owing, but their home repossessed. Chris Joy has met some of the residents.
I bought this property in 1986 and I no longer own it. It hasn't been repossessed by my building society. I managed to pay the mortgage. It's actually been repossessed by my freeholder.
Moira Dawley's flat is in Denmark Mansions, a turn-of-the-century block in Camberwell, South London. She's an architect and liked the look of the two-bedroom flat when she first saw it in 1986. She paid £39,000 for it and became one of 16 leaseholders in the block.
We knew there was repair work had to be done to the building. It's quite an old block. The original freeholder proposed to carry out this work and we were quite happy. It seemed a reasonable bill he was sending us and we were all very happy.
In 1989, a new landlord, Harold Bebbington, bought the freehold. Repairs started in 1991. They were supposed to take 3 months.
Since that time, they kept finding more and more work that needed to be done. They had to completely demolish and rebuild the chimneys. They demolished and rebuilt the balconies. They found damp-proofing work that needed to be done. They took away staircases and rebuilt
Harold Bebbington's first estimate for repairs was £132,000. A lot of money, but the leaseholders knew work had to be done to the ageing block. In 1 year, the annual service charge for each leaseholder jumped from £350 to £3,900 to cover repairs. It didn't stop there. Over the next 3 years, Harold Bebbington sent bills for repairs to the balconies, £21,400. Rising damp cost £16,000. Repairs to chimneys cost £27,000. To top it all, 10% was added on for Mr. Bebbington's management fees.
Lots of people moved out because they couldn't stand living there anymore. We were getting these bills, we were being threatened that if we didn't pay these extortionate bills, we'd have our leases taken away.
The law governing property like this gives a landlord almost unlimited power to spend other people's money. Here that's meant 4.5 years of disruption and spiralling costs, all controlled by Mr. Bebbington. Once he added his management fees to the bill, every homeowner was expected to pay over £20,000 and the work still hasn't finished.
Everyone I contacted, the building society, there's nothing you can do. Most of the legal profession, there's nothing you can do. I went to see my MP, there's nothing you can do, you know. There seemed to be absolutely nothing.
A court gave Moira Dawley 6 weeks to pay £24,000 in service charges. She couldn't pay. Returning home one night last July, she found the locks had been changed. Mr. Bebbington had taken legal possession of her flat. It's now empty and is being redecorated by the builders. Moira Dawley has an outstanding mortgage, but no home to show for it.
I'm renting a flat now, which, that's fine by me. I don't have to worry about freeholders anymore. I also owe the building society £44,000.
Moira Dawley thought she owned her home, but as a leaseholder she'd little control over it. A second owner in Denmark Mansions also lost his flat to Mr. Bebbington. Now the remaining residents can only look on as the building work continues. Harold Bebbington owns the freehold to 600 properties in London and the South East. 15 of his leaseholders have been in touch with Watchdog. At Perry Mansions in Catford, leaseholders have paid £7,600 each in extra charges. At Station Road, New Barnet, flat owners have been asked for £4,000 each. The work hasn't yet started. And at Arterbury Road, Wimbledon, residents have seen their service charges rise steadily from £290 a year to £8,900 this year. Mr. Bebbington is well within his legal rights to ask for the money or to take the flats. And there's little legal remedy for leaseholders when it comes to these service charges. The tenants would have to prove the charges and the cost of repairs were unreasonable, which means litigation.
They have to go to court to challenge it, and that is expensive. Many tenants in this position who own long leases won't be entitled to legal aid. They'll have to fund the litigation themselves. They may not be able to afford it. The biggest problem, I think, for tenants in this situation is they can't plan their future. If you own your own house, you can make plans about how quickly you do repairs and whether you do repairs at all. If you're a tenant under a long lease, your landlord decides how quickly he does them.
And a section of legal small print has extinguished the last hope for the residents of Denmark Mansions. One way out of this problem would be for the leaseholders to band together and buy the freehold from Mr. Bebbington. But once again, the law is against them. If property contains more than 10% commercial space, as this block does, leaseholders lose the right to buy. They're well and truly stuck.
Harold Bebbington wouldn't give us an interview, but he did tell us...
Denmark Mansions is not the norm, but one of those few and unfortunate cases, both to landlord and tenant, where the cost of putting the property into repair proved, in a falling market, to be out of proportion to the value of the flats. We have brought the block up to a reasonable condition, thereby making the flats more mortgageable.
Don't underestimate the importance of this story. If you have a leasehold property and no share of the freehold, it could happen to you. It's a classic way for landlords to make a profit out of service charges and repairs. Right, let's very quickly catch up on phone news. Chris?
Well, bargain books, we've had the good news. The bad news has been called in by Peter Harland, who compiles bestseller charts of publishers' products. He says, beware, publishers could start clawing back their losses in the new year, so prices could be going up again.
That's good news for small booksellers. Jonathan?
Annie, Ascot Driveways Limited still deny that Marcus Gordon is running the company. As for all our complaints, they say, quote, it's down to the nature of Ascot's product and the overwhelming response to their national marketing campaign.
Alice, very quickly.
Been inundated with calls about people who bought food because of the glossy photo, then been disappointed with what's inside. Supermarkets say it's not the number of lumps of meat that matters, it's the weight of the meat that counts.
But the pictures can look as delicious as they like. That's it for tonight. We've enjoyed being part of Princess Diana's warm-up team. Thank you for watching. Enjoy Panorama. Good night.
Stay tuned for EastEnders, coming next on BBC One.